The topic of today's podcast is analysis of Socrates in the Clouds of Aristophanes. The Clouds is a comedy written by Aristophanes. As the main character in this fiction, Socrates is portrayed as an eccentric sophist who denies a god and corrupts the young. While in the eye of his students, Socrates is so wise, just, and edifying. He devoted his whole life to the god and tried hard to correct people's misbehavior. Although the primary sources are scarce, it is still interesting to analyze the behavior, characteristics, and belief of Socrates through the discrepancies of these sources. Born in 469 BC, Socrates was an Athenian public figure and central participant in the intellectual debates. His influence in the area of philosophy and personality is enormous, though he wrote nothing. Most of his behavior and thoughts were recorded by his students. Socrates was a controversial public figure in his age, as was shown in the Clouds of Aristophanes and the writings of Socrates' students. In 399 BC, Socrates was accused by Meletus, a poet who was young and little known, Anytus, a tanner who probably inherited the business, and Lycon, who was an orator or politician. According to Xenophon, the accusation consisted of three parts: not recognizing the gods the city recognizes, importing new superhuman beings, and corrupting the young. Though Socrates defended himself at the public suit, he was still judged guilty, and subsequently sentenced to death by drinking a mixture containing poison hemlock. The figure of Socrates in the Clouds is distorted, and several traits of him are exaggerated. First of all, Socrates shows eccentric behavior since his first appearance in comedy. The way Socrates shows up is a huge surprise. He goes down sitting in a basket. It simply makes no sense that a so-called sage soul, thoughtful cogitator, fine and gentle people in thinkery would ever behave like this. Aristophanes established a generally negative image for Socrates. While looking at the description from Xenophon, we find that Socrates acts quite like a normal person. Xenophon said, Socrates lived ever in the open, for early in the morning he went to training grounds. In control of his lusts and appetite, he was the strongest of all men. In general, it is reasonable to believe that true Socrates is far more normal than Socrates in the play. Actually, Aristophanes and Socrates were acquaintances, which denies the idea that Aristophanes portrayed an unreal Socrates because of lack of information. Instead, Aristophanes probably concerned more about artistic value here. As a hero in the Clouds, Socrates does need to act differently in order to raise spectators' attention, as well as to emphasize his importance in the play. After all, The Clouds is a comedy, and absurdity is obviously a significant way to make people laugh. Also, think about the image of Socrates in The Clouds. Aristophanes meant to build the Socrates who disobeys social norms, as is shown during the whole play. Then we simply understand why Socrates acts strangely since first appearance. Another discrepancy is Socrates' belief about the gods. In The Clouds, when Xiaopeng asks Socrates what he's doing, the answer is ridiculous. I tread the air and scrutinize the sun. Such a use of language, such as tread and scrutinize, is certainly pompous and possibly impious, for sun is treated as a god in ancient Greek, which represents great authority. More interesting thing is Socrates irreverently compares the gods to legal tender, which had a meaning of coins in ancient Greek, showing that he is talking about the gods as if they were money. Comparing the holy, superior gods with mundane, profane money is obviously so wrong and inappropriate. Yet this is exactly what Socrates did in the play. However, we got a whole different picture when reading Plato's and Xenophon's works. Socrates never denied the God respected by state. In 21a of Apology of Socrates, Plato wrote, "He, the God, cannot be speaking falsely. That's not permissible for him," showing that Socrates actually acknowledged the existence of God. In the next page, Plato emphasized this point, that in truth, the God is wise. These words clearly prove that Socrates actually endorses and respects the God worshipped by the citizens. Though we cannot ensure if he was lying or not, these words at least point out that Socrates did not deny the God openly. This idea was also confirmed by Xenophon in Memorabilia. In chapter 4, Socrates spends a great deal of time explicating the value of God to Aristophanes. For instance, he said, "So do you, having received both these priceless gifts, still not think that the gods care about you?" These words show that Socrates is in fact a loyal believer of the gods of Athens, which subverted the negative image in the clouds. In fact, modern writers also give their own explanation about whether Socrates believed in God or Athens or not. In Dr. Garrett's view, Socrates indeed believed in the commonly accepted God. But during the trial, when Socrates actually confronts his accuser, Miletus shifts his ground and accuses Socrates not of teaching new gods, but not believe any god at all. The accuser here, as Dr. Garrett thought, was so random that his accusation changed as the trial went by. This idea affirms the view from Socrates' students. Additionally, there is the issue of how Socrates taught his students. In the clouds, Socrates is a true sophist. He teaches others unjust arguments in order to help people out of trouble. After Pheidippides, the son of Strepsiades, learned the unjust argument from Socrates, he starts scolding his father and beating him, while even gives his father a right reason to justify all these actions. This fragment shows that what Socrates taught is super immoral and antisocial. For regardless of reason or argument, beating parents can never be right and just in a healthy society. Compared with the nefarious Socrates in the play, Socrates described by his students is holy and highly reputable. As a champion and mentor in philosophy, Socrates spent most of his life educating people in Athenian public places. In Xenophon's mind, he is a good teacher who not only exhorts people to virtue, but also capable of guiding them to it. Using questions as the main way, Socrates successfully improved his friends and corrected their wrong thoughts and misbehavior. Also, instead of causing Pheidippides to a bad relationship with his dad, Socrates in Memorabilia edified and benefited people. Xenophon described like this: "Many of his companions were consulted by him to do this or not to do that, in accordance with the warning of the divine sign, and those who followed him prospered." It seems that Aristophanes delineated Socrates as a sophist who corrupts youth for several reasons. First of all, in the angle of artistic consideration, the story becomes much funny when conflicts appears between father and son. Beating parents is absurd, so Aristophanes might choose this scene to trigger strong reactions from audience in order to achieve artistic success. Also, Socrates is depicted as a maverick throughout the whole play. He shows up in a basket. He scrutinizes the sun. He believes in new God. All his behavior contradicted with social norms, and the contradiction is believed as the essence of the comedy. In this case, Socrates again causes a contradiction between Strepsiades and his son, which is in accordance with the big picture. Moreover, It is uncertain whether Socrates accepted money from his students. As we mentioned above, Socrates did not deny the money Strepsiades wanted to give, at least in the clouds. Does that mean Socrates earned money from teaching? In the view of Plato, Socrates never asked money for teaching. Plato said, "Certainly not if you have heard from anybody that I try to educate people and charge a fee." Xenophon, surprisingly, gave two opposite answers in his different works. In Memorabilia he wrote, "But while he checked their other desires, he would not make money himself out of their desire for his companionship." While in Symposium of Xenophon, Aristophanes said, "I display my generosity to all my friends, share the wealth with anyone who wants it, spend all day at my leisure with Socrates." Though not explicitly emphasize the issue of money, it seems that Socrates might get money from his students, as Xenophon contradicted himself in this issue. It is never easy to find the true answer, so we cannot say Aristophanes misrepresented Socrates at this point. Analyzing the purpose of writing this play might be helpful for us to understand why the Socrates in the Clouds is greatly different from the relatively true one. As scholars suggested, Aristophanes might not be enemies of Socrates. He wrote this play in order to warn him. At the end of this play, Thinkery was burned by Strepsiades. We all know that a normal person would never burn a house. Likewise, a just person, Aristophanes here, did not have any motive to ruin Socrates. He simply did not have any deal with Socrates. So it is more rational to believe that Aristophanes tried to warn Socrates that the tragedy would happen, just like the Thinkery was burned at last. Hints like this also exist in other parts of the play. From the beginning of the Clouds, we notice that Socrates is so respected inside the Thinkery that pupils all admire him. However, in the end, the Thinkery is burned by Strepsiades, a new student Socrates accepted from the society. This end is really revelatory. Socrates does gain success in his Thinkery. However, when he exposes to society, disaster comes. It seems to me that Aristophanes agreed with Socrates' opinions in some degree. Yet he realized that posing these ideas to the public would cause huge trouble. For general public, like Strepsiades and his son in the play, fail to fully understand Socrates' points of view. Aristophanes might foresee the finale of Socrates, so he wrote this comedy to insinuate what might happen to him. Also, the manner of Clouds in the play might be the attitude of Aristophanes in the real world. At first, Clouds always endorsed what Socrates said and helped him to convince Strepsiades, while at the end of the story, Clouds turned against Socrates and reminded Strepsiades that those unjust arguments his son learned were taught by Socrates, which then infuriated Strepsiades, causing the burn down of Thinkery. That is all. Thanks for listening.